Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. When we started doing this video channel, I think in my mind it was going to be filled with videos about puzzles like this one. We're often asked, Mark and I, about which is our favourite puzzle of all time, and you may have seen a video I recorded earlier this year about a puzzle by a compiler called Elgin. It appeared in the Listener Crossword series, which is a series that is published here in the UK in the Times newspaper every Saturday, and it's been going for decades and decades now, and it's widely regarded as being the hardest crossword that you'll find anywhere. And anyway, Elgin's puzzle from earlier this year was an absolutely incredible puzzle, and if you're interested in very difficult crosswords, you should certainly go and revisit the video. I'll put a link in the chat. But way back in 2001, Elgin produced a puzzle that I think is widely regarded as a masterpiece. Now, at this time, I'd probably only been solving the Listener for a couple of years, and although I was a reasonable solver, I've been solving cryptic crosswords since my early teens, I suppose, this puzzle was really quite something else. And on the screen there, you've got the preamble from this puzzle. Now, because this puzzle is nearly 20 years old, and the Times electronic records don't go back that far, we've recreated the puzzle as best we can. This is a very faithful rendition of what we faced at the time, and it's called Symphonie Bathetique. And if we read about it, let's just go through this preamble and think about how monstrous this sounds as a crossword. So 22 bars have been omitted from this composition and should be inserted, even though this destroys the harmonious symmetry of the grid. Of the 50 clues, the 4 in italics are normal, but their answers, which are related, should be Playfair encoded using a key phrase of 3 words. See below. We'll come on to that in a minute. For 28 of the clues, a note, a letter between A and G inclusive, is to be omitted from the answer given by the definition part, the subsidiary indication leading to the mutilated form. Okay, so we're going to have to do something different with the wordplay to what the definition is giving us. The omitted note is always the first letter of a word in the clue, and each note is used the same number of times. The first letters of each of these across and down clues give 2 coded messages. The remaining clues are normal, and their first letters give additional information. As a coder, solvers should decode the 2 messages to find the original performers of the piece and a statement which, following the final movement, should be true of the final grid, excluding coded entries. And then there is an explanation as to what a Playfair square looks like. And I think Playfair coding dates back to the First World War. I might be wrong about that, but it's certainly quite an interesting method of encoding a word. And you can see Elgin's put in a kind example there using the code word of Mozart. Now, rather than go through Playfair square encryption, which would be a video in itself, we're going to hive that off into a separate video that Mark's going to record over the next day or so. So if you're interested in Playfair coding, and I know some of you are from the questions we've had on the channel, you should definitely watch that video. We're going to show you how to solve the Playfair square that occurred in this very puzzle, and it's not an easy one, so definitely worth a view. But what I want to focus on is the crossword itself. And hopefully, if you're sort of noting down, you can see there's clearly a musical theme running through it, and it seems to be quite highfalutin. I mean, the references to Mozart, to coders, to final movements and harmonious symmetry, etc. It's all sounding extremely polished. And here on screen now, I've got the grid that we were faced with. So you can see it's a fairly normal listener style grid. So a listener crossword is always what's called a barred grid. So you don't get blocks, you just get bars separating squares. But there really aren't many bars, and you'll have noticed also there's no numbers at all. So not only are we faced with clues that the answers to which have to be adjusted and adapted, we have no numbers at all, and we have to insert these extra bars into the grid as we go through. And then we can take a quick look at the clues. I'm not going to show all the clues now, but here is an example of some of the across clues. And one of the wonderful things that Elgin incorporated into this puzzle is if you read these clues, you'll find that they're all extremely musical. They all refer to composers or types of music, absolutely all of them. Now, if you think about how difficult it is to write a cryptic clue to start with, you know, if you have a constrained grid, which, believe me, this compiler had to deal with, and you have to make sure all of your clues contain musical references, that's really not easy at all. Let's just pluck one of these clues at random and see how easy it would be to solve. Let's have a look at this one. A German rounds exotic language. So round, obviously, the hint there is that a musical round. But here, to solve this clue, the answer, believe it or not, is Herero, which I think is a Bantu language. And what you have to appreciate here is a German, well, Herr is a German, it's a word that would describe a German man, H-E-R-R. Round is just this O here. So that clues H-E-R-R-O, so this middle E here is not clued, it's one of the notes that's dropped, and exotic language is all you get there for the definition. And of course, when you're solving this, you don't know how long the answer is. You don't know where it goes, you don't know where the checking letters are. So you can imagine that solving this puzzle was incredibly hard. Now, we may, depending on the response to the video, actually go through all of the clues at some point in a different video, but that's not what I want to do today. I want to show you the denouement. I want to show you why this crossword is so famous in crossword circles. So what we're going to see now on the screen, if you look in the corner there, you should be able to see my attempt at filling the grid. So I'm filling in the grid that's given there, actually with all the answers to hand. So I'm showing you how to fill the grid even if you know all the answers. Now, believe me, even if you know all the answers, it's still not that easy to solve, and that's because there are other things going on. And in particular, as you can see here, the extra letters given by the normal clues, the first letters of normal clues, spelled out, grid has 7 blanks. So you can imagine you're trying to solve this without knowing that at the start. It is very hard to do. But here in this, you can see we have 7 blanks down here. Now, as I said before, you needed to crack that Playfair code square. If you did that, you would have found that the Playfair keyword, or keywords, or key phrase, was the music box, which some of you may ring a bell for some of you. The other coded messages spelled out 2 things: Laurel and Hardy, which I'm sure will ring a bell for many of you, and also all lights are words. Now, a light in a listener crossword is just an entry. So if we have a look here, it's quite clear that all lights are not words. For example, there is no word NOA here going down. Noah is not a word, and neither is hero. But I hope that you're all starting to look at this grid and notice something rather wonderful about it, which is that at the top of this staircase, created by the extra bars that we've added during the solve, there is a piano. And I think we should just pause for a moment to watch what happened when Laurel and Hardy in the music box repeatedly tried to get their piano to the top of the stairs.
Wait a minute. That's it. Heave! Ho! Heave! Ho! Heave! Ho! Heave! Ho! Heave! Heave! Ho!
Would you gentlemen please let me pass?
Why, certainly, ma'am. Why, just a moment. Just a moment. Maybe I can help you. Now.
I mean, I've revisited this film actually making this video, and you know, given how long ago this was, it is absolutely hilariously funny. I think it won the first Oscar for comedy. I'm maybe slightly misrepresenting that, but it's certainly an all-time classic film. And you'll have noticed that in the film, the piano ends up repeatedly, actually, at the bottom of the staircase. So what could this mean in the context of this crossword, where we need to turn all of these lights into real words? And if you study this grid, it is absolutely extraordinary. Just look what would happen if we shift this piano down to the bottom. The word panthologist, which is not a word at the start, it's an abbreviated form of pantheologist, which was the clued definition answer. We can remove that P, and it was going to become the word anthologist, which is certainly a word. And if we move the P down, it makes the word plea here, and the word rip here. Aha, I hear you say, well, rip isn't a real word. Well, Chambers' dictionary begs to differ. There we go. R-I-P-P, believe it or not, is a real word. It means the same thing as rip 5, which is a handful in Scotland of grass or corn. So there you go. So let's continue. We can move this I here. That creates the real word ode in the acrosses. If we move it down here, this is quite incredible. It creates into in going across, but look at this word coming down. Glomeruli. And I can hear you saying, well, glomeruli definitely isn't the word. Oops. Yes, it is. It's the plural of glomerulus, some sort of capillary blood plexus. So we're already seeing Elgin explore parts of the dictionary that many of us are not familiar with. Let's carry on. We can remove the A from here. Oops, let's remove it. That creates the word no, that's certainly a word. And the name Irene, also very familiar. Put the A in here. This makes Galena, which is a reasonably well-known word. And aim. What happens if we move the N? We get D, which is a word. I can show you that in a minute. And regiment. Add the N down here. And we get nay, as in born. And pancreatin, which of course you'll now realise is a word. Pancreatic juice apparently. And D, let's just check that one. There it is, the plural of deus, so gods in Latin. And then finally we need to move this O. That creates Jure, which is certainly a word. And Romeo coming down finally. So in the final movement, look what we've done. The piano, just as in the film, has slid down the stairs that we had to create, down to the bottom to create a grid full of real words to satisfy the puzzle's preamble. Now, I hope you'll agree with me, and I hope you'll appreciate why we wanted to make this video, especially given that the Laurel and Hardy film, I think, comes out tomorrow. Revisiting this crossword was like, you know, revisiting a great old friend. This really was part of my. It made me fall in love with the Listener Crossword. So I hope that you get some pleasure out of watching this video summarising the puzzle. It really was quite a remarkable thing. As I say, 20 years ago, and still very fresh in the memory. So thanks for watching. Something a bit different today, and as I say, Mark will be back to show you how to crack that Playfair square over the next couple of days.